Hey everybody, it's Paul. I'm back again with another one of my Trace Elliot videos. So today we're probably going to look at my favourite of all of the Traces that I own. This is my Trace Elliot V-type amplifier. So this is an original V-type. They were made in the mid 1990s. You can see this one has a green Tolex. These were actually paired with a 4x12 inch cabinet, so they had the 1248 and the 1248H. The difference being that the H has got a horn installed as well. Both have four 200 watt 12-inch Celestion speakers in, so they were paired with these. My amp didn't come with that. My amp came with the 410 that we all know and love. Bought this off a friend in Melbourne, so it's Melbourne, Australia, back around 2006. He was looking to offload it. I saw it and immediately thought I want to get hold of that, and I've used it as a gigging amp ever since. I still take it out occasionally for gigs, although as they're getting rarer now, I do prefer to keep it in the studio if I can. It is a little bit knocked about. It's not 100% perfect by any means. Obviously got some wear to the handle up here. But yeah, I'd like to talk about the V-types today, and not just this one, but all of the range, because there were quite a few and some pretty interesting amplifiers. So this is a original V-type. They were later badged as a V4. The reason being is it has 4 power tubes in it, or valves if you prefer. If you're from England like me, you'll probably call them valves. Everywhere else in the world, probably call them vacuum tubes. So I've got 4 of those. Generally, they're KT88 valves. So in this amplifier, it was running KT88s. My tech had a look at it when I had a broken valve, and we tried some 60, I think they're 6550s, or their Wing C new old stock valves. But what we found with those is that the plate voltage coming out of this amplifier is so high that they were actually distorting and faulting. You could see the valves flashing. So 6550 is no good. We then went for some KT 120s, which are pretty powerful. They sounded awesome, but very big valves, and I had a couple of issues. I've had to break, and obviously it gets expensive because you need to have a matched set of valves really, and you know you for a quad of valves, you know, you could be talking up to $400, right? It's really expensive. So a couple of attempts with the KT120s, that didn't work out. We're now running KT90s in here. They actually sound really good as well, and they fit in the cabinet a lot better than the KT120s. So found we were stretching the springs that hold the valves in a bit, and I'm not sure whether that was causing some of the problems with the valves breaking. But anyway, KT90 is running this now, absolutely fantastic. There were a number of other V-types in the range. So the first one to talk about, they had some hybrid V-type amps which had the same valve preamp as these, the same valve preamp section, but it had a solid state MOSFET power amplifier in them. So that was the same, certainly in the 300H. So there were 2. So I'll step back. There were 2. There was the 300H and the 600H. H for hybrid. And 300H had 1 power board in it, and I'm assuming the 600 had 2, but I've never seen a 600 up close, so I'm not 100% sure on that. The 300H that I had apart had the Clive button MOSFET board, so Clive Button designed board, that was also used in some of the GP7 and GP12 SM and SMX range, as a replacement for the bipolar bear. Got another video on bipolar bears, and I've got something planned around power sections, maybe in a few weeks' time. So the V-types came as an amp head, but also a combo version, so you might see some V-type combos around. Something else I've seen is a rack mount preamp. So it's a V-type rack mount preamp, and they were part of the range as well. So you can buy it just as a preamp on its own, which is pretty cool. Again, these things are quite rare. You don't see them around too often. So now the other amplifiers in the range are really something special. So we've got the V6. And again, I've seen the V6 mainly with the furry green carpet finish. The V6 had 6 KT88s in it, 4 12AX7s in the preamp section, and it was pushing out 400 watts, 800 watts peak, which is insane, right? That's a lot of power. So yeah, really great amp. This V-type itself, this does, it's 220 watts RMS, 440 peak, which is ample, really. Especially if I stick it through both cabs. So I've got the 15 and the 410, you know, beautiful sound. So that was a V6. I did see one special V6 actually. One of the guys on the forum sent me a picture, so we'll have a look at that. And this was made for a trade show, and you can see it's got a silver finish on it. So that's really nice, but that's unique. That's a one of a kind as far as we know. But also in the range was the flagship V8. So the V8 had 8 of these KT88s in it. Again, I think it was pushing out 400 watts, but you can imagine, you know, this amplifier was huge. It's about double the depth of this one, the big box. I've seen those in the generally in the black vinyl finish. Yeah, so you know they were revered. They're quite rare. So I've seen reports that there were only about 80 of them made. I'm not sure how true that is. I saw in another internet forum somebody saying there were about 200 made. I actually have no idea, but I know that I've not seen many in my lifetime, and many of the V8s that I've seen advertised for sale are usually being owned by some big name artists. So in one of the forums I saw Sting's X V8 for sale. In another there was John Entwistle's X V8. So you can see that they really were given to the cream of the bass players out there at the time. Okay, so let's have a quick look at the front panel of this V4. So you can see we've got 2 inputs here. We've got separate input for passive and active basses. So on most of the Trace Elliots, so I can move down here to my GP7. There's usually just one input jack and a passive active switch. But you can see here, separate jacks. We've got a gain control, and here we've got a deep switch, so that gives you a bit more of a deep bass sound. You've then got your 3-band EQ, so bass, mid and treble. But interestingly, the mid also has a pull shift on it. Now what that pull shift does, according to the manual anyway, is it shifts the frequency range of the mid control upwards to around about the 2 kilohertz range. Okay, so you can obviously shape your tones a little bit more. It's a little bit more flexible with that. And then we've got a bright switch here as well, to make it sound a little bit more brighter if you want. So you've got deep switch, bright switch, and that shift, as well as the 3-band EQ. So that's pretty useful. Trademark Trace Elliot DI, which has the switch for pre or post EQ. So that's pretty much the same as on any of the other amps. Then we've got the ground lift. So if you do have a bit of a ground loop, you can flick that pretty quickly. Then the volume control. And we've got that nice sort of green crystal power indicator and a really solid power switch. So that's the front panel controls of the V-Type. Okay, so around the back, you got that main ground up switch there, on off switch, obviously this one's 230 volts. And then as we go along, see the various warnings. 220 watts RMS 440 peak. My serial number still intact, which is amazing. And we've got a line out. You send that out to your tuner or whatever you want, and a send and return for the effects loop. And then we've got the speaker outputs. Now, I've not mentioned this before, but Trace Elliot decided in their wisdom, and I'm not entirely sure why, there's probably some good sound engineering reason for it, to use the 3-pin connector for speakers. So we've got the option here of the 3-pin or the normal jack. Now, if you're going to use the 3-pin, and you'll find you've got a similar socket on some of the Trace Elliot cabs as well, you need to make sure you get a proper speaker cable made for it. So don't get tempted to use a microphone cable. The impedance won't be correct and you probably damage your amp. So always get a proper speaker cable. I tend to avoid that. I will just go and buy a standard jack speaker cable from any good musical store. Get a good quality one and you won't go far wrong. And then on the end we've got a switch for speaker impedance. So we can select between 8 ohms and 4 ohms. So I can run both my cabs in parallel and I can flick it to the either the 8 ohm or the 4 ohm as I require. So that's very good as well. Okay, now we're going to have a quick look inside the amp. So I'm going to take this cover off. What I'm not going to do is pull the chassis out. I don't really want to start disturbing things in this amplifier, but we'll have as close a look as we can with the back cover off. Okay, so here we are inside the amp. So we've got the two transformers, one either end. Pretty standard design. You can see there's a fan in here as well for fan cooling. Then here are my Russian-made Electro Harmonics KT90s. Okay, I'm not going to give a lesson in valve supply here, but really there's only a few countries now where they make valves or tubes. Electro Harmonics, or their parent company, actually own a factory in Russia where they make these KT90s. Okay, and then behind those you can obviously see some rather large capacitors, and we got a couple of other tubes in the background there, and I think right at the front I think they're the AX7s that power the preamp. So yeah, very solid, dependable, reliable, well designed amplifier, certainly in my opinion, for what that's worth, which is probably not a lot. Okay, I thought we might actually just have a listen to this amp. So I've just got it. Let's set these to the centre, shall we? Not going to play anything too spectacular, just a number from one of my bands, and really that's just so I don't get any copyright strikes. Excuse my cack-handed bass playing, but you will get to hear the beautiful sound of this amplifier. Pretty good. We try that pull shift. So there we go. Bright switch. Deep switch. Both. And then with a pull shift. Okay, well, thanks for joining me on this video. If you like this one, you want to learn more about Trace Elliot amplifiers, or bass guitars, or even just generally tinkering around with electronics and things, then please consider subscribing to the channel. Thanks for watching.